back to
Will and Dibby
on 95.7 The Game.
All right, here's the deal. We do sports radio, but sometimes, as a dad of three, although there are two of them that I'm focused on mostly with this particular conversation, sometimes we do things in our professional world just to make us look cool to our kids. I have a 15-year-old son and an 8-year-old son who spend 6 days a week waiting for 10 a.m. on Sunday so that they can turn this man on and watch Red Zone as we get ready right now. Scott Hanson, host of the NFL Red Zone channel. For more information on NFL Red Zone, visit NFL.com/Red Zone. 12 minutes of commercial-free Scott Hanson starts now. Hi, Scott.
Now, that is an introduction. I do a handful, several dozen of these type of radio hits here. That is an introduction. What are the young men's names? What are your boys' names?
Okay, they are Abe, 15-year-old Abe, and 8-year-old Jude. And I'm telling you, man, they dance to that intro music that you guys play at 9:58.
Well, I have nieces and nephews, and when we started the show, I mean, this is season 14 for us on NFL Red Zone. When they were little kids, actually probably a little younger even than Abe and Jude, they used to call it Uncle Scott's laser show, because you know how the lasers kind of shoot all over and then
Yep.
So they were like, when's the laser show starting? So Abe and Jude, if you're listening to this right now, this one's for you, courtesy of your dad. 7 hours of commercial-free football start now. And I want to get Dave and Jude going.
Oh, man, that's unbelievable. Yes, I just got big points. That was huge. That was I don't know, Kyle. You might do the rest of the show. I think my career has peaked. That's
so you've done it.
I'm out.
Very well done by you.
Good stuff, Scott.
Scott, I just want my question is not about your bathroom habits, because frankly that's none of my business. My question is, you said you do about 12 of these hits. Out of 12, how often do you get asked about your in-show potty habits?
13, because someone asked me like twice because they asked a follow-up question about it. It is the universally most fascinated, evidently, the most fascinated that a sports viewing public can be about the biology of a sportscaster that I've ever heard. It is, and here's the other thing. So many of those people who ask, and it's virtually everybody, think they're the first person to ever ask me, hey, we love the show. My girlfriend and I sit around and watch the game, and we watch the show. And when we go to the bathroom, we come out of the bathroom, you're still talking. Like we're like, when does Scott Hanson go to the bathroom? And of course, the famous or infamous answer is that no, I do not take a break for all 7 hours. I haven't taken a break in probably, I think it's been a decade now since the last time I took a break.
But I also notice you never fully graphically answer the question either. Like we're left to just sort of like imagine how that does get taken care of. And I'm not asking you to give the graphic answer now, but I'm just saying I've noticed that. I've noticed you don't, Scott, you don't give the full answer.
Well, no, okay, I will give you guys a little something. When I know there are people that are listening right now that are wondering. Believe it or not, well, here's the way to put it. My bladder is so conditioned, so trained.
Wow.
Evidently, I think my bladder knows when it's Sunday on the weekly calendar. I really do. And I dehydrate myself. I go through the process each and every week, dehydrate myself, cut off all liquids about 2 or 3 hours before the show, use the facilities. When you guys are, when Abe and Jude are watching the 5-minute countdown clock, leading up to the show,
yeah.
I'm in the men's room at that time. That's when the 5-minute countdown clock starts, I go to the facilities, come back out, get ready, and I'm so conditioned, honest to goodness, guys, the show ends with the touchdown montage at the end of the day, and then Sunday Night Football kicks off, and I drive home back to my place here in Los Angeles, and I watch Sunday Night Football like a fan. I will not go to the bathroom sometimes until halftime of that game. And I can go right after the touchdown montage rolls, and I don't need to. So it's a pretty incredible thing. The human body, what a wonder.
It knows, right? Yeah, it's just like all the people who are like, I don't need an alarm anymore. I tell my body I need to be up at 6:30, and you just wake up. Like, that's amazing. Your bladder has done that too. Scott Hanson, NFL Red Zone, is with us here on 95.7 The Game. Scott, we have a unique weekend of football in that I think, and Kyle, do I have this right? 6 games between teams that both have winning records. So is that, I mean, obviously for the viewer, that's a great thing, but does it create any challenges for you guys in how much you're going to want to be at all of those games?
Yeah, that's a good point. But look, we can't wait for this weekend. On paper, this is the best weekend for NFL Red Zone games of the season. And here we are, in week 13. This is the best weekend. I mean, you're talking Jets, Vikings, both winning records, both playoff position. Commanders, Giants, massive game in the NFC East. Titans, Eagles, Philadelphia, probably maybe the best team in the NFL. Late window. Dolphins, 49ers. Are you kidding me? I know you guys have already talked a ton about that.
Yep.
But that's fascinating contrast in styles there. Chiefs, Bengals, rematch of the AFC title game, both teams in playoff position, and then other games where teams have
Mm-hmm.
big records. Now that also means that there's some 4-7 versus 4-7 games
Right.
this weekend too. But no, I'm rubbing my hands together right now doing research, getting ready for this weekend. But there will be times where either we're going to have to go triple box if those games prove to be good, tight, competitive games. Or we're just going to have to be bouncing around as fast as we ever do. And I want to let your audience know that when we get to this point in the season, when we start getting into, playoff scenario clinching time and whatnot, we do lean towards teams in playoff position and shy away from teams that, quite frankly, are playing for a top 10 or a top 5 draft pick. But that's just the nature of the NFL.
So you said you do a bunch of research leading up to this. What does your preparation process look like? Do you have flip cards for all these teams? Do you have just like statistical nuggets? What kind of prep do you do for a standard weekend?
Yeah, it's pretty in-depth because if I was a play-by-play guy calling a game, Joe Buck is preparing for 2 teams and 2 rosters and 2 coaching staffs and that type of stuff week to week, or any play-by-play person, where I've got 12 games this weekend. I got 8 games in the early window, 4 games late. Now, I'm not researching each one of those games to the level that a play-by-play person would be doing, but I do end up with our research staff at NFL Media, which is fantastic, sends all of the on-air talent a 100 to 200-page packet on Tuesday nights, which buttons up what we saw from the weekend before and looks ahead to the weekend ahead. I take that packet and I boil that down to probably about 30 pages of notes, and each game I will boil down to, or at least attempt to boil it down to 1 page of notes that I think are top shelf nuggets that I want to slip in during the show. Now, a lot of times I never get to a lot of those nuggets because I say it's a little bit like a handyman going into a house that needs repairs. The handyman wants to have the tool belt completely full and know all of his tools that he could use in whatever job is necessary inside of the house. But when you get inside of the house, you find out, it's an electric problem or a plumbing problem or a drywall problem or whatever. I need this tool. That's the same way. I prepare for everything that I think might be interesting during an NFL Red Zone Sunday, but when we get into the show, the games dictate, it's important to know that Matt Ryan has thrown the most pick sixes in the last 3 years in the NFL or whatever it is. And that's just a made up one, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a lot of research. I saturate my mind with everything I can think of. And then when the laser show begins, it's flying by the seat of our pants and ad-libbing and reacting to the football as it comes to us.
Scott Hanson with us, 95.7 The Game. Just a few minutes left to go, which means we've reached the portion where this interview will either become good or it will become bad. We've reached the witching hour with Scott Hanson. By the way, when did that nickname start? Because I have said this a number of times this year on this show, Scott, to give you a compliment, I honestly think our time, 12:30 in the afternoon to 1:15 in the afternoon, it is the best thing on television. It is the number 1 45 minutes of television every single week with what happens in that window. When did that start to become a thing and take shape the way it has?
Yep. Well, thank you for the compliment, but it's ultimately a compliment to the competitiveness of the NFL because it never fails to amaze us.
Right.
Even when I go to the witching hour, I show the scoreboard usually, and we'll say, okay, 8 games going on right now across the National Football League, all of them in the fourth quarter or at the end of the third quarter, and we have one-possession games in Cincinnati, in Atlanta, in Detroit, and I list those. Sometimes there'll only be 2 one-possession games, and yet somehow, some way, 2 or 3 other games find a way to become just jaw-dropping, texting your buddies, tweeting about this, saying, can you believe that just happened in this game? So how did it come about? Well, just in doing the show, again, this is season 14, so the rhythms of doing the show, we would be like, man, guys, buckle your seatbelt when we get to the end of the third quarter of this early window of games. And we always knew that. And so after a while, I started calling it out to the audience saying, hey, we're into the period of time, which is, I just nicknamed it, the best hour in sports television, which some people may have thought was bombast or hyperbole at the time. But I was like, no, you watch this hour of sports television and tell me that there's a better hour of sports television, or in your case, in your opinion, the best hour of television that goes weekly. So then after a while, I heard on social media different people saying, we call it the witching hour. My buddies and I in our fantasy league call it the witching hour and whatnot. I heard Mike Francesa, the longtime sports talk radio host in New York City, he said that he and I think Brent Musburger used to call it the witching hour back in the 80s when Musburger was hosting CBS NFL Today. So the origins of it, like any good urban legend, are kind of, through the mists of time, different people credit themselves with it. But we're like, hey, let's nickname it the witching hour. That's a tight little concise thing. We can put a graphic on there, and the audience will know and have a Pavlovian response to when that chime goes and they hear my growly voice say, it's the witching hour, when wins become losses and losses become wins. And just talking about it right now, I'm already looking 48 hours ahead to
It's not about who created it, Scott. It's about who popularized it. So congratulations on creating the witching hour. This is all you.
Thank you. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
I'm looking at this stat here. 79 games this season decided by a touchdown or less this season. The most through 12 weeks all time. Is there a team that you enjoy following along with as the slate goes? Because hey, that's a 13-point game, but that team's going to be in the mix during the witching hour.
Yeah, I'll give you one, and it's one you might not think of because they're 4-7. They've been on the bad side of many witching hours. The Detroit Lions, because they've had a top 10 scoring offense for much of the season, and they've had a bottom 3 scoring defense for much of the season. And so just the way you described it right there, that a Lions game can be a 14-point lead for either the Lions or the Lions' opponent. And I'm like, that ain't safe. That ain't safe. It's not winding up that way. And sure enough, the Lions have produced, for better or for worse, they're not a team in playoff contention, but for better or for worse, some of the dramatic finishes. And that even kind of goes back to last year as well. One of the plays of the year, if not the play of the year, the 66-yard Justin Tucker field goal to win the game, Ravens at Lions last year, was partly because the Lions couldn't hold a lead. So look, I root for drama on NFL Red Zone, and the Detroit Lions at 4-7 have been giving us their share of it all year long.
Scott, great stuff. What a thrill to have you on. Really, really fun. By the way, any preview thoughts on Dolphins 49ers? What do you think?
Oh, man, I can't wait. Look, at defense wins. It still wins in this league. And the 49ers, the way the 49ers defense is not fool's gold. They are the real deal. Number 1 in rushing, number 1 total defense, number 1 scoring defense as we speak here. But the Dolphins, with Tua, the highest rated passer in the league, look at try and control Tyreek and Waddle, and the 49ers will win that game. And the other thing is, I think Miami's defense is able to get got at times. They're decent, and they play complementary football to what's a lethal offense. And I think Jimmy G and the Niners will find ways. I think Shanahan will come up with some things to develop plays for all the different diversified playmakers there. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see the Niners win this game and the Niners to go on and win the division.
Scott, again, awesome to have you. Thank you so much for your time, man. A lot of fun. You do just great work on Sundays.
Mark, Kyle, thanks for having me on. Enjoy the weekend. And Jude and Abe, come see Uncle Scotty, 10 a.m. on Sunday.
It's incredible.
So good.
Thanks, Scott.
So good. There he goes. Scott Hanson, NFL